So good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Wildflower Seed Planting webinar. My name is Tia Salvesi, and I am the Florida Friendly Landscaping Agent with the University of Florida IFAS Extension in Orange County. So we are located right down here by the International Airport. And I invite you to follow us on Facebook. Our Facebook page is Garden Florida, the UF IFAS Orange County Extension. And that's the best way to keep up with all of our events here and find out more about wildflowers, Florida friendly landscaping, and all other things plant related. So Florida friendly landscaping, in case you're not familiar with it, these are a set of 9 principles that were developed by the University of Florida in conjunction with the Environmental Protection Department. And they all work together to help you have a sustainable landscape. For example, principle number 1, planting the right plant in the right place. You know, finding plants that are suited for Florida and getting them in the right spot in your landscape to get the proper amount of sunlight or the proper amount of water. That can really eliminate of a lot of extra problems, like having to water or fertilize them more. Today, our wildflowers kind of cover principles number 5, which is attract wildlife, and okay, I just had to unmute myself there for a minute. So moving on here, the Wildflower project is part of an effort to increase biodiversity in our landscapes, in our region. So this is a picture of maybe someone's house, a normal kind of cookie cutter home. And with our development, our rapid development, we have kind of commercially developed landscapes. And, you know, they might have something like a magnolia or a Laura pedlum or a sago palm, but they really lack a lot of flowers or floral resources that provide the pollen, the nectar, or other food for wildlife like nuts and berries. So we're seeking to address this problem with wildflowers. There are many benefits of wildflowers. They provide pollen and nectar for bees and butterflies. They attract beneficial insects that prey on landscape pests. Like think about ladybugs, how they can come to your yard. They're beneficial and they eat the aphids. And so that helps to promote more ecological landscapes and reduce the need for chemicals, pesticide, even organic pesticides. And finally, they're just beautiful and fun. I enjoy watching the bees and the butterflies in the landscape. Maybe you have kids or grandchildren or nephews and nieces who enjoy that too. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to choose species that do well in Florida. So this is the most important part. Remember Florida friendly landscaping principle number 1, choosing the right plant for the right place. So this is also important for the wildflowers. And I'll be going over some of the native and non-native species that do well. But again, you want to look for if you have sun or if you have shade. And, if you're in North Florida or Central Florida or South Florida, most of the ones I'll be mentioning today do pretty well across the state. So let's get into the Florida native species here. So from left to right, we have the tick seed, the Coreopsis lanceolata. And I put the scientific names in here. These are especially important for the native plants because there are many species of tick seed and some of them grow really well in our area. Some of them are native, some of them are non-native. So that's just kind of up to your personal preference. In Florida Friendly, we recommend planting a mixture of both native and non-native species. But the lanceolata, this is one of the native species. And this is actually our state wildflower here. So this does really well in most kind of urban landscape gardens. It does great in our demonstration garden here. And it really lives a long time. It might be a long-lived annual or short-lived perennial, and then you can collect the seeds, and it's something that's really tried and true in our landscapes here. We keep planting it over and over. Other native plants include the horse mint, the Monarda punctata, that's in bloom now. It's a fall bloomer that looks really beautiful. A lot of pollinators visit that one. We also have the black-eyed Susan. So this is kind of shorter lived annual. You plant it now and then it will make this beautiful flush of yellow in the spring, in the summer, and then it will kind of completely die out and self-seed, reseed itself. Next over is the red salvia. So if you struggle with shade in your garden, this beautiful red flower, this is a Florida native. This is a good choice for you. On the bottom, we have the native milkweed, the Asclepias tuberosa. That's the host plant for the monarch butterflies. The beach dune sunflower, which is good if you have, coastal or salty areas. Spiderwort, the purple one, that's a long bloomer, kind of more like a perennial, and the bees love that one. And then another species of Coreopsis here in the bottom right corner, the Coreopsis Leavenworthii, and that does better if you have a moist soil. It naturally grows alongside of riverbanks. So some other ones that are really good that are not native to Florida, the Coreopsis basalis. This is native to the Central Plains area of the United States, and it has that red center. It's a beautiful wildflower and commonly planted in the roadside mixes, and does really well here in Florida. The second one over is the blanket flower, Gaillardia pulchella. And this was previously classified as native, but it is recently been bumped off onto the non-native list, but it's still a really great plant, especially if you have sandy soil or salty, around the air in the coastal areas. Grows great year after year from seed. Sometimes the seeds can spread a little bit more than you want them to, so be aware of that. The next one is the phlox. There is a native species of phlox, but the more common one is this non-native to Florida. It's actually native to Texas, Phlox dromonoides. That grows good. It gets early blooms, the purple. The next one over is the zinnia. Zinnias and Cosmos, they're both native to Mexico, and so they can't take the cold climate like January weather in Florida, but you can plant them now and get flowers throughout a cold snap and then plant them again in the spring. And these are just one of the tried and true good bloomers in our garden, very easy to grow. Starting in the bottom left, we have the calendula, and that's makes orange dye out of the petals. It's really easy to go, and this is cold hardy, so it's low growing. If you're doing a container garden, then calendula would be a good choice for you, and it can take all the freezing temperatures in the winter, so you don't need to worry about that. Cosmos is kind of similar to the zinnias, and they grow a little bit taller and they're a little bit more tropical, so they won't survive the cold. Marigolds, they're just a good all-around plant to have in your garden. There are many, many species of marigolds and cosmos and zinnias, so plant those for the butterflies, for the bees, cut flowers, they do great. And on the far right, I have the bachelor's button, and this one does pretty well, and I like this. There's many, many more plants that you can grow, but these are all ones that I've had good experience with, and they're good at being sustainable in the sense that you can save the seed, you can regrow them, you can plant them year after year in a sustainable way. So next we're going to get into actually planting the seeds. So many of these wildflowers can be easily started by seed, and they are open pollinated. And the difference between what I call a wildflower and like an annual bedding plant, think of like an impatient, New Guinea impatient or something. Those, you don't really grow them from seed. You don't save the seed. They're more like commercially bred, and you kind of have to buy them every year. In addition, they don't provide a lot of pollen or nectar for any of the pollinators out there. So they're not really that beneficial to the wildlife. They look pretty to us. They have beautiful color on them, but they're not providing the food for the pollinators like these wildflowers that I have listed. So again, the seed can be saved year after year. Some people call them like heirloom type of flowers. Or you can replant them, you can share them with your friends. Many of them will just self-seed on your own. So if you can just have a little dedicated area to plant your wildflower seeds and just seed them right in place, that's a really good way to do it. Maybe like the little side part of your yard or a little backyard strip or something, wherever you can. So where to get seeds? So this is a complicated thing. Now that I kind of told you what are the best seeds to get and plant for your wildflower garden, there's a lot of places you can get your seeds, mail order from seed companies. This first picture on the top left, I ordered those from the Florida Wildflower Growers Cooperative up in Gainesville, Florida. And they're about $3 a pack, and they have, you know, a mix of native and non-native, mostly individual packs, and they sell larger quantities. If you're doing a big commercial project, like a roadside wildflower project, you can get, you know, seed mixes from them. The Ferry Morris Seed Company, we grew the wildflower mix last year in our garden. We were very successful with that. And that does have a combination of a couple Florida natives like the Coreopsis, and then some non-native stuff like the Cosmos and zinnias. And Eden Brothers Seed Company, we're trying out one of their seed mixes this year in our garden. You can get some seeds at plant festivals. Like I know we have the Backyard Biodiversity Day coming up on, I think, October 16th in Mead Gardens, and that's hosted by the Florida Native Plant Society. Saving your own seeds from your garden, and also coming to in-person workshops at our demonstration garden here. We had an in-person workshop on Tuesday, and everybody left with lots of seeds, because once you have them, you know, they're kind of abundant. So how to plant wildflowers from seed? Well, you need to know the best time to plant the seed is in the fall. So October is really the best month, but throughout November and December, you have to be careful with the cold sensitive things like the Cosmos and zinnias, because they will freeze. So maybe no later than December 1st, but the cold hardy, like the sweet alyssum, the calendula, the Coreopsis, those you can keep planting even though the weather gets cold. So again, choosing species that do well in your area that I just mentioned. And then you want to have pretty bare soil like sand, or you want to scrape back the mulch, you know, scratch up the soil a little bit, pat them in, and water till established. Here's another, the blue mist flower. This is a wildflower we're going to try to grow in our trial this year. So how to plant wildflowers from seed. If you're growing in a raised garden bed or a not raised garden bed like we have here, we just have some bamboo we're using for borders. So again, the first step, like use a rake or your hand or a little trowel and scuff up the soil. You just want to break the surface of the soil. It doesn't need to be tilled very deeply, and that will just allow the wildflower seeds to kind of settle down in there. Number two is spread the seeds. So kind of like you're feeding a chicken, like the chicken scratch, and spread the seeds evenly throughout the whole area. So, you know, you have to make sure you want to get full coverage. And if you find you don't have enough seed, you know, buy a couple other packets of seeds and and supplement. And then the step 3 is just pat them in, like use your hand to pat them in, or some people step on it with their feet if they don't like bending down, or use a big pot or a rake or the top of the hoe to kind of pat it down. And that helps to make good contact with the seeds and the soil. And that way they don't blow away or run away in the first rain. And we did a little video about this. Troy Bailey, he's one of our expert garden technicians here, and you can watch that video on our Facebook page. So some of you might not have a big plot of land, so you can do this in your own backyard, just like I do in my backyard here. So I have a little grow box. And so I have the pack of seeds. This is the pack of seeds you'll get after filling out our survey today. And so, I put the 1 pack of seeds throughout the grow box. Same thing, start by scuffing up the soil, spread the seeds, pat them in, water them in after that. And you can watch this video on our Garden Florida Facebook page too. So if you just have a small space, you live in an apartment or condo or townhouse, you can do a lot with the container garden. You can plant your 1 pack of seeds in the container garden. Here's some of the zinnias that we have. These were started by seed, and also the marigolds in the pot. So these are both good choices for a pot. Really, all of them can grow in a container. You just have to pick the right ones for your site. So the next thing is weeding. So you planted your seeds, they're sprouting, and then this is the tricky part, weed or wildflower. So in order to get like a beautiful stand of this tick seed we have here, you can see the gaillardia right behind that. You will need to do a little bit of weeding in the early growth stages. So if you're planting a wildflower mix, you might not know how to identify all the little seedlings of the different, species. Like the one we're going to give you, it has like sweet alyssum, calendula, coreopsis, phlox. But what you should be able to do is identify the common weeds that you're normally like pulling out in your garden, in other parts of your garden, and look for those things like spurge, chamber bitters, sedge, the purslane, artillery weed. And if you're not sure if it's a weed or a wildflower, you can always send us a photo to our extension office and we can help you identify it. So here's some pictures of some common weeds. On the left, we have this spurge. This is just like a common spurge, and it grows in many different, has different species. The one to the right is a slightly smaller, species of the same thing. But these generally have the same look. There's many spurge species. And then chamber bitters, this is another one. It kind of looks like the spurge, but it has these little balls, on the bottom of the leaf. So that's something to look for. Again, if you have questions about if it's a weed, you can always send us a photo. And then the next thing you need to learn is about seed saving. So you want to be sustainable. You don't want to have to buy the seeds year after year. And so most of these wildflowers, you need to wait until the flowers finish blooming, and then the seed heads kind of turn from green and until they completely dry out. Like you can see on the gaillardia here on the left, the little, gray fuzzy balls, those are all ready to save the seed. And so save the seed, put it in a paper bag to let it dry off, maybe smush it up with your fingers a little bit to loosen them up. Same thing here with the orange cosmos pictured on the left. So this is a grow box I have in my backyard, and it's just real sustainable because I just pick off the seeds, I sprinkle them back into the grow box. So you can see this older plant is growing, it's kind of dying, and then there's lots of new baby ones growing up. So I'm never gonna run out of orange cosmos here. And that's a great, easy to grow wildflower to start with. So just some examples from last year's flower trials we did. So our plant date is October 1st. And last year by December 2nd, which is just 61 days after planting, you can see our Cosmos and zinnias pictured here on the right. They are already in full bloom. Like if you look at some of the seed packs, like this zinnia says 35 days to bloom. So this is an early bloomer. It's a great one to go and get some instant gratification that you planted some wildflowers and you are attracting bees and butterflies to your garden. On the left here is the native plant, the Coreopsis lanceolata in the front, and you can see it's growing nicely, but it's still in the vegetative stage here. So what we've learned, this is our third year of doing the wildflower trial, is mixing some of the non-native like the Cosmos and zinnias to get the early bloom with like some of the native like the Coreopsis to get the later bloom, because check this out here, finally in March, at 151 days after planting, the Coreopsis is finally starting to bloom. And then that is going to continue to bloom. It's still even blooming right now. It is October 7th and it is still blooming. And you can see the phlox in the background. Those started blooming around Christmas time and they are still blooming, and then they're kind of short-lived after that. And then back to the fairy morse wildflower mix here in the front. So there's some different things blooming here. The Cosmos and zinnias kind of puttered out, but you can see the calendula and maybe some baby's breath or something that's still going. So our goal really is to maximize the flowering of these wildflower species year round, and that is going to provide the most food to our pollinators. So just a little bit more about our demonstration plots. So we are free and open to the public. Our garden is open during daylight hours, and it's really cool to come in person and see them. And that way you can really see what they look like, how they grow, how they feel like, you know, their clumping habit, their flowering. Look for the seed heads maturing and starting to turn brown. So this is our address here, 6021 South Conway Road, Orlando, Florida, 32812. And like I said, we are near the Orlando International Airport. In addition, we have an all Florida native wildflower meadow in the back north corner of our property. And so just take this little bridge over here and you'll enter our wild meadow habitat. And in the picture on the right, you can see all the beautiful yellow flowers. So some of this is the black-eyed Susan. We also have lakeside sunflower. And we have the Coreopsis Leavenworthii in here. So everything is 100% native. And the native plants are especially good in attracting some unique pollinators that are, you know, they've co-evolved with the plants over thousands of years. And you might not find them on, you know, some of the non-native plants. So wrapping it up here, I invite you to come back for more. And part two, we will focus on more Florida native plants and specifically like the pollinators. So we talk about bees and butterflies, but there are more types of pollinators. There's wasps, there's many types of bees. So just diving a little bit deeper in there. And again, we will have this workshop in person here at our Extension Center. And we will have this workshop as a webinar. And then we'll invite you back again for part three, which will be in February of 2022, where you'll be able to see, you know, what's full blooming, you know, February, end of March timeline there. So it's cool to see the flowers at different stages of the year, what's blooming, when. You can also plant some of the shorter lived wildflowers after the first frost date, like usually around February 1st or February 15th. So here we have Troy, he's doing a seed planting demonstration that was from our last field day. And so I'd like to thank Revival Gardening for providing us these free pack of seeds that I can send to you all for my program. This contains a custom mix suited for Central Florida, although it probably will do well throughout the whole state. And it contains some native, like the Coreopsis, and then some non-native species. And this is a nice mix that one pack of these will cover about 2 square feet, like the size of my grow box there that I showed. And go ahead and get them planted after we send you them in the mail. And you do need to complete this survey in order to receive the pack of seeds. So make sure you do that after the class today. And just a couple mentions of some additional resources. Here we have the Florida Friendly Guide to Plant Selection and Landscape Design. And this is a great way to look in here and see, you can look under the annual section and under the perennials and see which plants are native or non-native, see which ones like sun or shade and other plant characteristics. That's a great resource, along with the 20 easy to grow wildflowers, which is a booklet that was created by the Florida Wildflower Foundation. And it has, some detailed characteristics of the 20 easiest to grow wildflowers for Florida. So that's something else. You can pick both of these up as a free PDF online. So just search for the title, or we'll put a link in the chat box for that. And so that concludes the workshop. So now you have the opportunity here to take our survey to get the pack of seeds. So go ahead and scan the QR code with your phone. If not, we can put the link to this in the chat. On my phone, you just use the camera. I have an iPhone, and then it opens the survey. And then we'll also put the survey in the chat box for you. And so thank you all for coming. I hope you learned a lot about wildflowers today. And please contact me if you have any additional questions. Thank you.